You're ready. Hello there, and welcome to this Beyond Shakespeare First Look Exploring session, where we're looking at the second part, i.e. the second session, of the Iron Age Part 1, which was written by Thomas Heywood and first published in 1632. This is a story about the Greeks and the Trojans going to war. So probably you know the plot already. If you don't know the plot, you could go back and look at part 1, which we recorded yesterday. But basically, the first section of the play was all about the build-up to the war between the Greeks and the Trojans. We had Paris going off to the Trojan court, meeting Helen, and shenanigans ensued. Today, things are going to move on apace. It's going to be an action-packed storyline today, and helping me sort through it all are the following wonderful readers. So reading Agamemnon today is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm a tyrant, apparently, among other things.
Reading Achilles today, we have...
Alan, based in Suffolk.
Reading Ajax and Astianax.
Rachael, actor on the East Coast. No stacks of pancakes today.
Just Astianax of pancakes. Reading Menelaus, Aeneas, Herald, and Hecuba is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian living in Hull in the UK.
Reading Calchas, Hector, and Thersites is...
Hello, I'm Lynn Freitas. I'm a mild-mannered college composition teacher. I live in the northwestern United States.
Reading Paris, Troilus, and all the Trojans is...
Aliki Chapple, actor and translator based in northwest England.
Reading Ulysses, Priam, all the Greeks, Helen, and Patroclus is...
Hello, my name's Francis Cox. I'm an actor and voice artist living in Amsterdam.
Given that Aliki's reading all the Trojans and Francis is reading all the Greeks, maybe we should just let them get on with it. Last, but by very no means least, reading Diomed, Cressida, and Romaca is...
I'm Gina Moravec. I'm a voice actor and podcast producer in the Northeast United States.
And I am your host today, Sarah Blake, stepping in for Robert Crighton, and I will be reading the stage directions. So we have a lot of text to get through today, so let's crack on with it. We begin with Act 2, Scene 3. Enter, after an alarum, King Agamemnon, Menelaus, Achilles, Ajax, Patroclus, Thersites, Calchas, and a few other random people.
Thou, glory of the Greeks, the great commander of the stout Myrmidons, welcome from Delphos. What speaks the oracle? The sack of Troy or the Greeks' ruin? Aye, shall we be victors or Priam triumph in our overthrow?
God of Delphos sends you joyful news. Troy shall be sacked, and we be conquerors. Upon your helms wear triple-spangled plumes. Let all the loudest instruments of war with stern alarums rouse the monster death. And march we boldly to the walls of Troy. Troy shall be sacked, and we be conquerors.
Thanks for thy news, Achilles. By that honor my father won upon the walls of Troy. My warlike father Ajax Telemon, I would not for the world Priam should send incestuous Helen back on terms of peace. May smooth Ulysses and bold Diomed, whom you have sent on your late embassy, be welcomed as Antenor was to Greece, scorned and reviled, since the oracle hath said, Troy shall be sacked, and we be conquerors.
King Agamemnon, here's a Trojan priest, was sent by Priam to the oracle. The reverend man I welcome and entreat the general with these princes do the like.
Welcome to Agamemnon, Reverend Calchas.
To Menelaus, welcome.
To Ajax, welcome. Father, canst thou fight as well as pray, if we should want for men?
By prayers I use to fight, and by my counsel give aid to arms.
Such as our past arms, Father Calchas, still. Say, counsel's good, but give me strength at will, when you with all your counsel in the field meet Hector with his strength. Tell me who will yield.
The strong-built walls of stately Tenedos we have leveled with the earth. It now remains we march along unto the walls of Troy and thunder vengeance in King Priam's ears, had we once answered our embassy.
I ever held such embassies as base. The restitution of our ravished queen on terms of parley bars our stern revenge, and ends our war ere fully it begin. King Agamemnon, no. Ajax saith no, whose sword as thirsty as the parched earth shall never ride in peace upon his thigh, whilst in the town of Troy there breathes a soul that gave consent unto the Spartans' rape. March, march, and let the thunder of our drums strike terror to the city Pergamus.
The son of Telemon speaks honorably. We have brought 1,000 ships to Tenedos, and every ship full fraught with men at arms, and all these armored men with fiery spirits, sworn to revenge King Menelaus' wrongs, and burn sky-kissing Ilium to the ground. Therefore, strike up war's instruments on high, and march into the town courageously.
In their march they are met by Ulysses and King Diomed, at which they make a stand.
Princes, what answer touching Helena?
What answer but dishonorable term? Contempt and scorn perched on the leaders' brows. By Jove, I thought they would have slain us both. But if ever Helen be redeemed from thence, but by the sack of Troy, say Diomed, is no true soldier.
Even in the king there did appear such high majestic scorn of threatened ruin, that I think himself will put on arms and meet us in the field. We linger time, great Agamemnon, march, that we may buckle with the pride of Troy.
Priam so insolent, his son so brave to entertain so great ambassadors with such ungentle usage.
They have a knight called Hector, on whose valour they build their proud defiance. If I meet him now by the azured arms of that bright goddess, from whom I am descended with my sword, I'll lop that limb off and reinforce their pride. Fall at Achilles' feet, Hector and I must not both shine at once in war's bright sky.
When they both meet, the greater dim the less. Great general, march. Ajax endures not words so well as blows in a field glazed with swords.
Enter to them in arms Priam, Hector, Troilus, Paris, Aeneas, Antenor, Deiphobus, and some others.
Calchas, a traitor.
And among the Greeks?
Base runagate wretch, when we their tents surprise, as Hector lives, the traitorous prophet dies.
Let not remembrance of so base a wretch make us forget our safety. The Argive kings are landed, and this day sacked Tenedos, and bid us battle on Scamander plains.
Whom we will give a brave and proud affront. Shall we not, brother Hector?
Troilus, yes, and beat a fire out of their burdenets. Shall like an earthy comet blaze towards heaven, there grow a fixed star in the firmament to emblaze our lasting glory. Hark their drums, let our drums give them parlance.
A parley, both armies have an interview.
Is there amongst your troops a felon prince called by the name of Paris?
Is there amongst your troops a knight so bold dares meet that Paris single in the field and call him felon?
Or, insulting Greek, is there one Telemon dares set his foot to Paris? Here he stands, and hand to hand maintain the wrongs done to Hesione, as Paris shall the rape of Helena.
No, here is one called Ajax Telemon. Behold him well, son to that Telemon thou fain wouldst see, and he dares set his foot to Paris or thyself.
thou durst not.
Dare not.
Or if thou durst, by this my warlike hand I'll make thine head fall where thy foot should stand. And yet I love thee, for I know thou hast parleyed with Trojan Hector.
Wert thou 10 hectares, yet with all thy might thou canst not make my head fall to my feet. By Jove, thou canst not, cause.
I much have heard of such a knight called by the name of Hector. If thou beest he whose sword hath conquered kingdoms, Pannonia, Illyria, and Samothrace, and to thy father's empire added them. Achilles, as a friend, wills thee to sheath thy warlike swords, retire from Troy's defence, and spare thy precious life. I would not have a knight so famed meet an untimely grave.
I meet thee in that honorable love, and for thine own sake wish that thee safe aboard. For if thou sayest, thou son of Peleus, I'd have thee know thy fame is not thine own, but all engrossed for me. Not all thy guard of warlike Myrmidons can wall in thee from mighty Hector.
Shame you not, great lords, to talk so long over your menacing swords.
Alarm then for Greece and Helena.
As much for us, for Troy and Hecuba!
And there endeth that scene. Well, it's all kicking off. We had some marvellous cattiness from Achilles there towards Hector. He's not feeling insecure at all, is he? Thoughts about this scene? Alan, then Lynn.
Yeah, there does seem to be rather an overdose of testosterone around.
Just a little bit.
Just a bit, yeah. Lynn, then Aliki.
Basically, Alan articulated my point in his own inimitable way. Yeah, I was going to say that quite the dick measuring contest we have going on here. Yeah.
I was trying to be polite. It's early in the day, Lynn.
Aliki.
So I've read that troops of chimpanzees will meet each other across the borders of their territories and go like that, and if they work themselves up to it, eventually they will fight. But sometimes one or the other troop goes away because they're like, those guys look strong. So I think this is what's going on here.
Yeah, very nice point, and kind of nicely structured by Heywood. The way because it starts actually, we're all on the Greek side, aren't we? And you've got Calchas coming in, who, yes, has been to Delphi and seen which way the wind is blowing, and has decided to change sides. So yeah, we start off, and then gradually everybody comes in. So you do have this sense of momentum building, which is quite nice. Any other thoughts on this scene? Eric, and then Francis.
It is a bit, I mean, since we've read other plays with wars in them, I figured we might as well name drop them. Like Battle of Alcazar, kind of, you're like, you know, there's this moment where they're like Spanish versus Portugal, I think, yeah, sort of looking at each other across the field and calling out insults and describing each other's shields, and you're like, how on earth can they see that? But it doesn't really matter at that point. But yeah, it's very much, I will gut you like a fish. But obviously a bit more sort of eloquent. And also I do like how Diomed turns up going, shut up and kill them.
Yes. Never mind the posturing. Let's get on with it. Yeah, it does make you wonder how they could hear each other. Loud hailers, perhaps. Anyway, never mind. Francis.
I found the location a bit puzzling, because at first I thought we were in Sparta, but then suddenly Priam turns up, with his crew, and I thought, oh, okay, we're not. We're at Troy, or we're somewhere in between.
Alan.
I think this is on the beaches below Troy.
Yeah, must be.
Yeah, to be fair, I think that is probably my fault, Francis, because I think they all arrived there yesterday, if I remember, at the end of yesterday's session.
I think they departed yesterday. I don't think they'd actually arrived.
Oh, they hadn't actually left. So I perhaps should have pointed that out at the beginning, before we started. Lynn.
So it's been a very long time since I've read the Iliad, and of course Heywood is almost certainly not using the Iliad directly as source material, because most people in Europeans in the Renaissance didn't read classical Greek, so he's getting at this through Roman sources. Still, all of this sort of sword rattling strikes me as very early modern. I don't remember anything like this in the Iliad. The two sides were actually very respectful of each other, as I remember, until you get to like the horse dragging Hector around part. But so I'm wondering, the people who are more familiar with the source material can like confirm or deny that sense.
I don't have any, I don't have a lot of familiarity with the source material because I read it about 30 years ago, but if anyone wants to come in on that. I mean, we did notice yesterday that there were some, some innovations with the way Heywood is telling this story. So that does all fit. That is all a piece with that, Lynn. Rachael, did you have something that you wanted to say, or maybe she's just not, now is not a good time? Sorry, my darling, I put you on the spot there. I can come back to you if you like.
Oh, sorry. What do you call? I was just going to say, it doesn't have to do much with the last point. I was just going to say about Ajax, that there's something about the way that Heywood's written it, that if we were in another play, it would be that witty repartee, but he doesn't seem to stick the landing at all. So it's just this, it's in this face, in your face bravado. I don't know if that's a common characterization for Ajax, that he's all muscle and not so much the muscle up here.
Yes, brawn, not brain. Helen.
The thing that struck me as different to my memory is just how much the fall of Troy was foretold. I mean, we were talking last time about how much the audience would be aware of how this was going to end then and now. But I think here we've got the participants have already been told how it's going to end. Now, I remember Cassandra, but Cassandra was cursed that no one would ever believe her. I had not realized that Apollo had also pronounced.
Well, so the Greeks know that, but do the Trojans know that? Because Calchas,
I imagine word would get back to them.
Well, yeah, but word's not the same thing as having your priest actually turn up and say, I don't know. It's a really good point, because the Greeks are very confident here, and they have good reason, but I don't know if the Trojans are supposed to know. I don't know.
Apollo hasn't introduced a time scale.
True, that's true. He could be talking like 30 years from hence. Anyway, Aliki, I think probably has things to say about this, and then Lynn.
I don't swear to it, but I'm pretty sure that in the Greek tragedies around this, rather than the Iliad, which I barely remember, Calchas was a Greek and came with Agamemnon. So I think Helen's right that this is not something in the source material. Right. At least not in the Greek source material.
Interesting. Lynn.
I did not know that in some competing variants, Calchas wasn't a traitor. He was he came with the Greeks originally. Okay, I got to go back and read the Iliad now and see if Calchas is a character. And because in this formulation, if Calchas had been a fairly successful prophet and seer in Troy, and he defects, that's a bad sign. So you would think that the Trojans would at least be like, but as you say, it's like, is it this year? Is it 30 years from now? It does take 10 years as the story shakes out. So yeah, that's such an interesting question. It's like, how much do they know how much do
Yeah.
both sides know how it's going to eventually? Yeah.
It is, because it would affect the site, in terms of putting this on as a staged production. How much would you want your actors to get into the psychology of that, especially your Trojan actors?
Yeah.
How much do they know? How much are they freaking out inwardly, and how much of this is sort of like bravado that they genuinely believe in, and how much of it is bravado purely for the sake of bravado, and inwardly they're kind of crapping themselves. Aliki.
So I've just looked it up, and I'm right. Calchas was Agamemnon's priest. He came.
Ah, right.
He's the one who said you have to kill your daughter Iphigenia if you want a favorable wind.
So
Yeah,
that guy.
Yeah. Yes, that chap. Yes.
So I wonder who made up the story that Chaucer later took up about Calchas being a traitor and having a daughter that he left in Troy and all of that. I wonder who made that up. Whether
Who knows? If anyone out there knows, please put it in the comments under the video. We welcome all your information, because clearly we do not have it. Right. Okay. We'll have to. Eric, one more point.
No, I was just going to say that there are a lot of priests and prophets in the Iliad and so on and so forth, that you get Calchas, you get Ulysses, who is kind of the father of one of the women that Agamemnon and Achilles fight over. So, and he's kind of captured as well, if I remember correctly. So it is possible that he's just conflated them into one character for ease, rather than sort of, going, yes, this is one priest and this is another priest.
For ease, or possibly for dramatic effect, because it's far more dramatic if he's actually Trojan and defects to the Greeks, of course. Right, okay, we must press on because we have a lot of text to get through today. Act 2, Scene 4. There is a great alarm and excursions, after which enter Hector and Paris.
Oh, brother Paris, thou hast this day lodged thy love in Hector's soul. It did me good to see 2 Greekish knights fall in their blood under thy manly arm.
My blows were touches unto those ponderous strokes great Hector gave. Oh, that this general quarrel might be ended in equal opposition, you and I, against the 2 most valiant.
I will try the virtue of a challenge in the face of all the Greeks. I will oppose myself to single combat. He that takes my gauge shall feel the force of mighty Hector's rage.
A turn. Both the armies make ready to join battle, but Hector steps betwixt them, holding up his lance.
Hear me, you warlike Greeks. You see these fields all dyed with purple, and the reeking gore of men on both sides slain. You see my sword glazed in the sanguine moisture of your friends. I call thee, son of Saturn, for a witness to Hector's words. I have not met one Grecian was able to withstand me. My strong spirit would fain be equaled. Is there some of your troops? Is there in your troops a knight whose breast includes so much of valor to meet with Hector in a single war? By Jove, I think there is not. If there be, to him I make this proffer. If the gods shall grant to him the honor of the day, and I be slain, his be mine honored arms, to hang for an eternal monument of his great valor. But my mangled body send back to Troy to a red funeral pyre. But if he fall, the armor which he wears I'll lodge as trophies on Apollo's shrine, and yield his body to have funeral rites. And a fair monument so near the sea that merchants flying in their sail-winged ships near to the shore in after times may say, there lies the man that Hector of Troy did slay. And there's my gauntlet to make good my challenge.
Will none take up his gage? Shall this proud challenge be entertained by none? I know you all shame to deny, yet fear to undertake it. The cause is mine. Mine shall be the honor to combat Hector.
Menelaus, pause. Is not Achilles here? Stern Ajax and kingly Diomed? How will they scorn that stand upon the throne, the honor of their strength, should you prevent them of this glorious combat?
By Jove, I think they dare as well take up a poisonous serpent as great Hector's gage.
Yes, Trojan, seest thou not Achilles darts emulous looks on kingly Diomed, lest he should stoop to take his gauntlet up? And see how Diomed eyes warlike Ajax Ulysses, every one inflamed to answer Hector.
Is there any here dares stoop while great Achilles is in place?
I dare.
And so dare I.
You're all too weak to encounter with mighty Hector's arm. This combat solely doth belong to me.
Then wherefore dost not thou take up the gauntlet?
To see if thou or any bolder Greek dare be so insolent to touch the same, and bar me of the honour of the combat.
By all the gods I dare.
And of all the devils, I'll lop his hands off that dares touch the gauge.
Pray leave this emulous fury. Agamemnon, to end this difference and provide a champion to answer Hector's honourable challenge of 9 the most reputed valiant, let several lots be cast into an helm. Amongst them all, one prize. He to whom fortune shall give the honour, let him straight be armed to encounter mighty Hector on this plain.
It shall be so. You valiant sons of Priam, conduct your warlike champion to his tent to breathe a while and put his armour on. No sooner shall the prize be drawn by any and our bold champion armed, but a brave herald shall give you warning by the trumpet's sound, till when we will retire unto our tents as you unto the town.
Faint-hearted Greeks, draw lots to answer such a noble challenge. Had great Achilles cast his gauntlet down among King Priam's sons, the weakest of 50 would, in the heat of flames or mouth of hell, answer the challenge of so brave a king.
You're muted, Lynn.
I thought I was done. Greeks, to your tents, to put armor on. Make haste. I long to know my champion.
And exeunt all. That scene made me laugh. I mean, like Hector issues his challenge, and there's just silence to the point where Menelaus has to say, "Oh right, well okay, I'll do it then." And then all of a sudden they all go, "Oh no, I'll do it. Oh, no, I'll do it. Oh, let's draw lots." And it's like, guys, where were you 2 minutes ago?
Yeah.
I don't know. It probably wouldn't be appropriate to play that scene as comic, although that's never stopped me. But it's certainly tempting. What do other people think? Or about that, or anything else about this scene? Lynn.
No, I think you're right. I think it is funny. And so that the physical, it's kind of like that physical comedy of, all right, the sergeant says, I'm going to turn my back and I want someone to volunteer by stepping forward. And then like everyone but one guy steps back. Yeah. So yeah, now that you point that out, it seems like, oh yeah, it's actually kind of hilarious. What I was going to say was unrelated to that. I don't know what to make of this, but I just find the layering of the culture of medieval chivalry over this classical story really weird. In here and in Chaucer's taking up of the Troilus story. It's like they didn't have gloves in ancient Greece for one thing. Like what? It's like, okay, I guess that's like, but chivalry was so deeply embedded in early modern culture, they didn't really have another lens to look at it through, I guess. I just find it very weird.
Yeah, it is weird. I find it endearing, I have to say. This is one of the things I love about early modern drama. It's early modern. It's not that, they can be talking about, Greece and Troy or ancient Britain or far away fields in far-flung places, but it's still basically early modern, and it's usually early modern London as well.
Right.
Yeah. And they have gauntlets. I saw hands earlier. Gina.
It's really interesting. Keep in mind, I don't have the same historical background as quite a few of you do, but knowing the baseline coming into this script and the story, assuming it's about a battle, I'd assume, because again, it's with the setting and everything, that it would be very much, just like rallying the troops, kind of like, showing the chest, things like that. So I've been pleasantly surprised with this reading, and even the poem reading we did last session yesterday, of how it shows the hesitance coming into battle, just all these big names that, again, with my background, not having this historical background, you assume like, oh, the troops are just going to rally, it's going to be a big fight and it's going to be awesome. But the writer takes the time to show that hesitance from all over the board, from the knights to the king himself, just being like, yeah, I guess I'll do that. And I honestly didn't expect that, and I was pleasantly surprised to see it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And it's also interesting. I mean, you weren't here yesterday for yesterday's first session, Gina, but you actually touched on something that we were talking about yesterday, because yesterday Hector was actually really quite reluctant to go to war. And so the fact that it's then today him coming out with this great speech and wanting to do single combat, it really adds to the complexity of the drama. It isn't just chest thumping. There's a lot going on here. Right, everybody's going to have to raise their hands again because I can't remember who. Eric was wanting to talk. So Eric, then Alan.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that aside from the hesitation, it's kind of interesting how you do get the sort of knights and sort of I offer my gauntlet and stuff and that kind of thing. But then, like, you kind of have to remember that if this was performed and when it was performed, it would have had to be relevant. Kind of like we would like nowadays, a lot of productions change swords out for machine guns, for example, which kind of ruins, can break a lot of plays, especially of this era. But yeah, it's kind of, it's in like sort of, yeah, it just is of its time, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's like, yes, the fact that there is there are a lot of early modern play productions now that yes, could make them more contemporary and have machine guns instead of knives, daggers. Back then they had gauntlets instead of whatever the early Greeks had. I don't know. I don't know what they would have done. But it's like they were effectively contemporizing it then, and that's what we have in the script. Alan.
Yeah, I must admit, I found it an interesting counterpoint between all of the sort of aggressive bullshit that we had out of them in the previous sequence. My dad's bigger than your dad, and then this. No, after you, Claude. No, after you, Cecil. I mean, it would be damn difficult to stage these days without it becoming comedic. And to a certain extent, I'm actually seeing the Pythons as the knights.
I certainly think there would be some merit to at least thinking about deliberately playing it for comedy, because you're right. I mean, I think a contemporary audience would find it funny, probably regardless, or a lot of them would anyway. So, but actually making it comedic would certainly be an option for a contemporary production. Francis?
Yeah, it suddenly occurred to me. I mean, I agree with you that scene of them saying, no, after you could be played comic. But I'm wondering if Heywood is trying to sort of build the dramatic tension here, because we're coming up to one of the kind of major highlights of the story, which is the death of Hector and then Agamemnon dragging him around the walls of Troy. Or am I wrong?
Spoilers! Spoilers for people who haven't.
I can't remember whether it was Helen and Lynn said the audience would have known the story. And so he is sort of, he's kind of like, no, I'm not going to give it to you yet. You've got to wait. You know what I mean?
It is a good point. Yes, the building up of dramatic tension. Yeah, that I don't know. Who knows what Heywood was trying to do with that scene? What do you think? Answers on a postcard. I do tend to see the comedy potential in everything, but that's probably a fault rather than a blessing. You could well be right, Francis. And yes, just to say, apologies to spoilers for anybody who hasn't ever read anything about the Trojan Wars. If there's anyone out there who doesn't know the story, just ignore what Francis said. It's fine. It doesn't really happen like that. Eric, and then we must move on.
I was going to say you could potentially just play Hector as Tony from West Side Story, and then because obviously that leads to sort of battle as well of a sort, but that's a lot more fighting and face to face. Yeah.
I feel I should sort of. I know you said West Side Story, but
yes.
I feel I should put in a
yes.
there. Let's just pass on over that, shall we? And go into Act 2, Scene 5. There is a flourish. Enter above the walls Priam, Hecuba, Helena, Polixena, Astianax, Margariton, with attendants.
Here from the walls of Troy, my reverend queen and beauteous Helen, we will stay to see the warlike combat twixt our valiant son and the Greeks' champion. Young Astianax, pray that thy father may have victory.
Why should you doubt his fortune? Whose strong arm unhorsed 1,000 knights all in one day? And think you any one amongst the Greeks is able to encounter with his strength?
But whosoever, child, unto the pleasure of the high gods, we must refer the combat.
And enter Paris below.
My royal father, Hector, in his arms sends for your blessing, with the queen my mother, and craves your prayers to all powerful gods to grant him victory.
Blessed may he be with honor. All my orisons shall invocate the gods for his success.
I had almost forgot, fair Helena. Dart me one kiss from these high battlements to cheer him with. Thanks, queen. These lips are charms, which whoso fights for is secure from harms.
And that is the end of Act 2, Scene 5. We're going to run straight on into Act 2, Scene 6. So heralds on both sides. Two champions, Hector and Ajax, appear betwixt the two armies.
None press too near the champions.
Heralds on both sides, keep the soldiers back.
Now, Greeks, let me behold my champion.
'Tis I, thy cousin Ajax Telemon.
And, cuz, by Jove, thou hast a brave aspect. It cheers my blood to look on such a foe. I would there ran none of our Trojan blood in all thy veins, or that it were divided from that which thou receivest from Telemon. Were I assured our blood possessed one side, and that the other by Olympian Jove, I'd throw my javelin at the Grecian moisture and spare the Trojan blood. Ajax, I love it too dear to shed it. I would rather wish Achilles, the half-god of your huge army, had been my opposite.
He keeps his tent in mournful passion that he missed the combat. But Hector, I shall give thee cause to say, there's in the Greekish host a knight, a prince, as lion-hearted and as giant strong as Thestis' son. Behold my warlike target of ponderous brass, quilted with 7 ox hides, impenetrable and so full of weight that scarce a Grecian save myself can lift it. Yet can I use it like a summer's fan made of the stately train of Juno's bird. My sword will bite the hardest adamant. I'll with my javelin cleave a rock of marble. Therefore, though great Achilles be not here, think not, brave cousin Hector, but to find Achilles equal both in strength and mind.
There is an alarum. In this combat, both having lost their swords and shields, Hector takes up a great piece of a rock and casts it at Ajax, who tears a young tree up by the roots and assails Hector, at which they are parted by both armies.
Hold. You have both shed blood too dear to lose in single opposition.
Is your champion, my cousin Ajax, willing to leave combat? Will he first give the word?
Sir Paris, no. 'Twas Hector's challenge, and 'tis Hector's office. If we surcease on equal terms of valor, to give you the word.
Then there's thy cousin's hand. By Jove, thou hast a lusty ponderous arm. Thus till we meet again, let's part both friends. For proof whereof, Ajax, we'll interchange somewhat betwixt us, for alliance sake. Here, take this sword and target, trust the blade, it never deceived his master.
Take of me this purple-studded belt. I won it, cousin, from the most valiant prince of Samothrace, and wear it for my sake.
Enter a herald.
Priam, unto the Greekish general this proffer makes, because these blood-stained fields are overspread with slaughter, to take truce till all the dead on both sides be interred. Which, if you grant, he here invites the general, his nephew Ajax, and the great Achilles, with 20 of your chief selected princes, to banquet with him in his royal palace. Those revels ended, then to arms again.
A truce for burying of the slaughtered bodies we yield unto, but for our safe return from Troy and you, what pledges have you found?
You shall not need more than the faith of Hector for Priam's pledge. King Agamemnon, take my faith and honor, which if Priam break, I'll break the heart of Troy.
We'll take your honored word. This night we'll part. Tomorrow morning, when that hour shall call, we'll meet King Priam near his city's wall.
And they all exit, and that is the end of Act 2. That did not go the way I expected it to. Anyone got any thoughts? Lynn?
Oh yeah, I don't remember the details, but I do remember something from the Iliad about Hector and another, I thought it was Paris though, in single combat, but it ends up as a draw because Aphrodite intervenes. So yeah, this episode of like, let's settle this like one man to one man, but it ends up as kind of a inconclusively. That's from the source material. Yeah.
It has a real pageantry feel to it though, doesn't it? It's like a sort of fake, it's like, I know people, I can't remember who now, but I know on more than one occasion there's been a parallel drawn between early modern fight scenes and sort of wrestling. But it's got that feel to it. It's like, oh, I'm going to throw a rock at you. Oh, I'm going to throw a tree at you. Oh, we're both really good at this, so let's just shake hands and swap gifts. And oh, let's do some reveling, and then we'll start fighting again tomorrow. I'm like, what? Excuse me? What? But Alan, then Aliki.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was set up as being effectively a fight between two champions. And yet then you get this big speech of, okay, fine, let's have a truce while we bury all the bodies and a banquet while we're at it. I know looking for logic in early modern and particularly early modern versions of Greek myth is a complete sign of madness, but I think it must be time for my medication.
I am beginning to wonder if you could just play this whole thing as a massive satire of war and sort of testosterone, as you said it earlier, Alan. I think it was Aliki who had a hand. Yeah.
I just wanted to point out, I think Lynn's right about this battle, that originally the goddess Aphrodite stops it. And we said it in our first session with this play. The gods have been removed from the equation, other than instigating the abduction of Helen. They've stayed out of it completely.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I'm not as familiar with the drama as I would like to be. And it has been a really long time since I read the Iliad. but yeah, this was the gods were really present. In the very beginning of the Iliad, Helen and Priam are on the walls of Troy, kind of watching the battle below, and Paris decides he wants a little something, and Helen's like, I'm kind of tired of sleeping with you. I kind of don't really want to. And Aphrodite's like, no, you guys are my little couple that I got together. You go sleep with Paris. So Aphrodite is really present, and the gods are really, really present. And that's a really good point. It's like that sort of supernatural, and sort of fatal element it's completely gone.
Yeah. And I mean, we had this discussion yesterday, but this is the fourth part of Heywood's opus. We have the Gold Age, the Silver Age, and the Brazen Age before this, and they are all very. This was the conversation that was happening yesterday. They are all very full about. They're all about the gods. The gods are the protagonists. And then in this fourth part, we haven't really had any action from them at all, which brings up interesting questions about if you were going to stage this as a as a season with these four plays. Well, not these four plays, these four kind of stories, because I think it's more than four plays, but it's at least five and probably more. What would you do with this shift in tone, and how would you play this particular installment as opposed to the others? But that's perhaps a conversation for another time. If you want to go back and see the Golden Age, the Silver Age, and the Brazen Age, they are available on the YouTube channels. So just do a little search and you'll find our previous readings of them. Does anyone else have anything to say about this section? Helen?
Yeah, one of the things that we very rarely discuss, except when I can't bear not to, is the performative nature of the Elizabethan tournament. Because there you would have whole teams of knights pretending to be Greeks and Trojans, or King Arthur, or paladins, or crusaders, or all sorts of things. And the tournaments themselves were macho exhibitions of enormous cost, vast quantities of heraldry, and a great deal of prowess, because riding with a lance and all the rest of it was skill. But they did have an enormous amount of performance in them, which would include ceremonially banqueting your opponents and things like that. And I see this as very much in the performative tournament thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a weird place to find it. But
it goes both ways. I mean, you find the tournament that everybody knew about in these plays, just as these plays turn up in the tournaments.
Yes, you've got a really like a fluidity there, got a crossover. It's a mashup. Either way, I'm enjoying it. Eric, I think I saw your hand.
I was just going to say that the whole, because people were asking about the exchange of gifts and the banquet and so on and so forth. Maybe the banquet wouldn't happen. I can't remember if it does happen in the Iliad, but I do remember the exchange of gifts was a way of honoring your opponent, kind of thing, as far as I remember. I don't know if that goes back to chivalry times, or sort of even before that, as in like literally, there would be maybe even a goodwill exchange of captives, that kind of thing, depending on how far you're taking the truce and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Lynn, and then we must move on.
I do have a memory, I think, of at least the temporary truce to bury and have funeral rites for the dead on both sides. That's from the Iliad, I think. So that bit is there might be an early modern chivalrous equivalent, but That little factoid is from the original myth cycle. I think.
Good, right. Thank you for that. Let's move on into Act 3, Scene 1. It's a short little scene. Enter Thersites.
Brave time, a rare change from fighting now to feasting. So many heavy blades to fly in pieces for such a piece of light flesh. What's the reason? A lass of my complexion and this feature might have been raped and stolen by Paris, and none of all this stir for it. But I perceive now all the world's turned wenchers, and in time all wenchers will turn witches, and these trumpets proclaim their interview.
And there is a flourish. Enter all the Greeks on one side, all the Trojans on the other. Every Trojan prince entertains a Greek, and so march 2 and 2, discoursing has been conducted by them into the city.
So here's the picture of a politic state. They all embrace and hug, yet deadly hate. They say they are brave lasses there in this Troy. What if Thersites sprucely smugged himself and strived to hide his hunchback? No, not I. 'Tis held a rule, whom nature marks in show and most deforms, they are best armed below. I'll not conceal my virtues, yet I should venture to damn myself for painting, fan my face with a dyed ostrich plume, pass through my wrinkles with some old lady's trowel. I might pass perhaps with some maid Marian, and some wench wanting good eyesight might perhaps mistake me for a spruce courtier. Tush, I from my first discretion have abhorred the name, still suiting my conditions with my shape, and do and will and can, when all else fail, though neither soothe nor speak, well, bravely rail. And that's Thersites' humor.
And that's the end of that scene. I don't want to pause for too long here because we've got a massive scene coming up. But everything we've just been talking about, Heywood has pretty much just put into the text, which I find hilarious. Anyone got anything that they desperately want to say about this before we move on? Aliki.
Just very quickly, I'm interested in the character of Thersites and how he's being used in this play, because in the section we looked at yesterday as well, he was the acerbic commenter on the follies of others. Yeah.
And it's interesting the way Heywood is using him. It does make me wonder whether this is supposed to be a straight play, you know, or whether it's meant to be. Anyway, that's perhaps a conversation for the end of the session. Alan.
Yeah, you could almost see some of that speech from Thersites there being used. If you've got a particular type of performer, I could almost see a Frankie Howard voice in there at points. You know, you could play double entendre in that quite heavily.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I mean, there's no reason, of course, why comedy and tragedy can't sit side by side in the same play. I mean, such is the stuff of life. So, but it's really interesting what he's doing with this play. Francis, and then we must move on.
Okay. Yeah, I see Thersites, as I said in the chat, it's this real grumpy old man. He's like, oh, yeah, look at these young people. Look at the way they're carrying on. They're going, you know, they've gone to war over some bit of skirt kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. When will they learn?
Victor Meldrew of Troy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Victor Meldrew, yeah.
Right, let's crack on. We've got a big chunky scene coming up. Act 3, Scene 2. There is loud music, a long table, and a banquet in state. They are seated, a Trojan and Greek. Hecuba, Polyxena, Cressida, and other ladies wait. Calchas is present, whispering to his daughter, Cressida.
After so much hostility and steel, all welcome to this peaceful entertain.
Priam, we know thee to be honourable, though our foe treason is to be feared in peasants, not in princes.
They sit.
Aye, so now sit a Trojan and a Greek, cousin Ajax near me, you are next of blood, and near me you shall sit. The strain of honour that makes you so renowned sprung from Hesione. 'Tis part of Hector's blood. Your grosser spirits, less noble, are your father Telemon's. Welcome to Troy and Hector. Welcome all.
In Troy thy kinsman, but in field thy foe. Thy welcome, cousin, here I pay with thanks. The truce expired with buffets, blows, and knocks.
For that we love thee, cuz.
Methinks this Trojan Hector outshines Achilles in his polished armors, eclipseth our bright glory, till he set, we cannot rise.
King Menelaus, we were once your guest. You now are ours. As welcome unto Troy as we to Sparta.
But that these our tongues should be as well truce bound as our sharp weapons, we should be bitter, Paris. But have done.
Menelaus is discreet. Such heinous wrongs should be discoursed by arms and not by tongues.
Why doth Achilles' eye wander that way?
Is that a Trojan lady?
She is.
From whence?
Of us,
A name?
Polyxena.
Polyxena. She hath melted us within, and hath dissolved a spirit of adamant. She hath done more than Hector and all Troy. She hath subdued Achilles.
Can we have Calchas to the stage, please?
Oh, shoot. I didn't realize I was. Oh, sorry. Talk amongst yourselves.
Your speech begins in one word. It's all right. I'm sure Rob can edit
Here
this
we are.
out. Yeah. Ready?
In one word, this Troy shall be sacked and spoiled. For so the gods have told me, Greece shall conquer, and they be ruined. Leave then imminent peril and fly to safety.
From Troilus?
From destruction, take Diomed and live, or Troilus and thy death.
Then Troilus and my ruin.
Is Cressida mad? Wilt thou forsake thy father, who for thee and for thy safety hath forsook his country?
Must then this city perish?
Troy must fall.
Alas for Troy and Troilus.
Love King Diomed, a prince and valiant, which made emphasis to his imperial style. Live Diomed's queen, be brief, say quickly, wilt thou? Is it done?
Diomed and you I'll follow. Troilus shun.
It Ajax or Achilles, that Greek lies who speaks it. I'll maintain it on his person.
Ha, Ajax.
Achilles!
We speak it, and dare Troilus say we lie?
And wear it, Diomed.
Durst thou make it good?
On Diomed or the boldest Greek that ever menaced Troy, excepting none.
None.
None!
Kings of Greece.
Princes of Troy.
Achilles baffled.
And great Ajax braved. What say you, Hector?
If great Achilles, Ajax, or the devil brave Troilus, he shall brave and buffer thee.
Sons,
Fellow kings.
as we are Priam and your father,
As we are Agamemnon general, do turn not this banquet to a centaur's feast, if there be strife debated in fair terms. Show yourselves governed princes.
We are appeased.
We satisfied, if Hector be so.
How grew this strife?
I know not, only this I know. Troilus will maintain nothing against his honor, and so far, be it through the heart of Greece, Hector will back him.
So will Paris too.
Mildly discourse your wrongs, fair princes, do.
King Diomed maintains his valour thus. He saith it was his lance dismounted Troilus, and not the stumbling on the breathless course of one new slain that fell me. 'Tis false.
'Tis true.
It was my fortune to make good that field, and he fell just before me. Diomed then was not within 6 spears' length of the place.
How, Trojan ravisher!
Call me not cuckold maker. I care not what you term me.
They all rise.
I cannot brook this wrong.
Sayest thou me so, mad Greek?
Paris,
Govern you kingdoms, lords, and cannot sway your own affection?
Paris, forbear. Mildly discourse, and gently we shall hear.
I say, King Diomed unhorsed not Troilus.
How came I by his horse then?
As the unbacked courser, having lost his rider, galloped about the field, you met with him and catched him by the rein. Here was a goodly act to boast on and send word to Cressida.
Was no prince near when I encountered Troilus?
I was, and saw the spear of Diomed tumble down Troilus, but peruse his armour, the dint still in the vambrace.
Be it not so or not so, at this time forbear to urge extremes. Kings, let this health go round. Pledge me King Priam in a cupful crown.
Now, after banquet revels, music strike a Pyrrhic strain. We are not all for war. Soldiers their stormy spirits can appease, and sometimes play the courtiers when they please.
A lofty dance of 16 princes, half Trojans, half Grecians.
I have observed Achilles, and his eye dwells on the face of fair Polyxena.
Why is not Helen here at this high feast? I have sweat many a drop of blood for her, yet never saw her face.
I could love Hector. What's our cause of quarrel? For Helen's rape. That rape hath cost already thousands of souls. Why might not this contention twixt Paris and the Spartan king be ended, and we leave Troy with honour?
Achilles, how?
Fetch Helen hither, set her in the midst of this brave ring of princes. Paris here, Menelaus here, she betwixt both. They court her again. Whom she elects before these kings, let him enjoy her still. For who would keep a woman against her will?
The names of wife and husband, the interchange of our two bloods in young Hermione, to whom we are joint parents. Helen's honour, all plead my part. I am pleased to stand to great Achilles' motion.
So are we. All that I have for comfort is but this, that in the day I show the proper man, in the night I please her better than he can.
Are all the Grecian kings agreed to this?
We are.
Place the two rivals then, each bide his fate, and usher in bright Helen, all in state.
The kings promiscuously take their places. Paris and Menelaus are seated opposite. Helen is brought in betwixt them by Hecuba and the ladies.
Oh, that I were but Helen anything, or might have any object in my eye save Menelaus. When on him I gaze, my error chides me, I my shame emblaze.
Oh, Helen, in thy cheek thy guilt appears. More I would speak, but words are drowned in tears.
A gallant queen, for such a royal friend, what mortal man would not with Jove contend?
Helen, the time was, I might call thee wife, but that style's changed. Aye, thou thyself art changed from what thou wast, and, most inconstant dame, hast nothing left thee, save thy face and name.
And both these I have. Hast thou not confessed, fair Helen, Thy exchange was for the best.
What can our Sparta value?
Troilus?
You
Who breathes that Sparta would for Troy prefer?
Thou hast left thy father, Tyndarus.
To gain King Priam, lord of all this princely realm.
Thy mother Leda, whom thou hast left, who mourns and with her piteous tears laments thy loss. Cannot this move thee?
Oh, I have left my mother.
No, Helen, but exchanged her for another. Poor Leda for rich Hecuba, a bare queen for the great Asian empress.
From Casta and from Pollux thou hast ranged, thy natural brothers.
True, true.
No, but changed for Hector, Troilus, and the royal store of 48 valiant brothers more.
If nothing else can move thee, Helena, think of our daughter, young Hermione.
My dear Hermione.
Canst thou call her dear, and leave that issue which thy womb did bear? She's ours, betwixt us. Canst thou?
Can she, knowing a sweeter babe within her sweet womb growing begot last night by Paris?
Look this way, Helen. See, my arms spread wide. I am thine husband, thou my Spartan bride.
That way?
My Helen, this way turn thy sight. These are the arms in which thou layest last night.
Oh, how this Trojan tempts me.
This way, wife. Thou shalt save many a Greek's and Trojan's life.
'Tis true, I know it.
This way turn thine head. This is the path that leads unto our bed.
And 'tis a sweet, smooth path.
Here,
Here.
take this way, Helen. This is plain and even.
That is the way to hell, but this to heaven. Bright comet, shine this way.
Clear star, shoot this. Here honor dwells.
Here many 1,000 kiss.
That way I should, because I know 'tis.
Welcome.
But all this way, for Paris kisses sweeter.
May I die an eunuch if ere morn I quit thee not.
I cannot brook this scorn. Grecians, to arms.
Then Greece from Troy divide. This different arms, not language, must decide.
Come to our tents.
And we demand the town.
These tents shall swim in blood.
Blood Troy shall drown.
And they all exit diverse ways.
Shall no stroke fall from Achilles' arm. Fair Polyxena, so powerful is thy charm.
And that is the end of this scene. Well,
Yeah.
that is one banquet that I wish I'd been at. Or maybe not, actually. I don't know. It's not going to end well. Oh, it hasn't ended well. Gosh, what an interesting staging. Straight in with Francis and then Lynn.
Yeah, it's such an interesting scene. I mean, it feels like, they're all the men are getting drunker and drunker, and there are these little fights and are breaking out between Troilus and Diadem. And then somebody says, okay, let's bring Helen in and she can choose, they're all a bit drunk. And then suddenly it turns really real, because there's this, and Helen's a very sort of pathetic figure. Well, not pathetic might not be the right word, but yeah, it's very well constructed, this scene.
It really is. And it's so interesting the way it comes on top of that scene, which was just, it seemed to be so deliberately pageanty and tournamenty. And then we go into this realism. And there is so much to say about Helen, but I won't say it now. Lynn, you had your hand up, and then Rachael.
I think this is Heywood's innovation completely. I don't think that a choice. I would remember this if this was in the Iliad, and I don't know if it's in any of the drama either. I tend to doubt it just because of the place of women in classical Greek culture. The idea of giving the woman the choice of who she wanted to go with just seems like that would never happen. So this is Heywood who came up with this little let's let the woman have some agency, and of course she chooses the sexual choice, not the moral one. But still, yeah, I would need to do some more thinking about this. I'm not sure what to make of it, but this is really interesting that he decided to make this up and put this in here.
Yeah, I have to say, I have no idea whether this is in any earlier plays or in any of the classical plays. Aliki might know, but if you know, then get in touch and let us know, or put a comment under the video. Helen, no, sorry, not Helen, Rachael.
No, I was going to say, because yesterday I was reading Helen, that during her back and forth with him about getting on the boat, or one of those scenes, she said that if he was there when she was allowed to choose a husband, she would have chose him over Menelaus. So I feel like this is very much, if it's Heywood's invention, then it's like she gets the chance again. Is it really true what she said, that she would have chose him? Like I don't know, it's some sort of, I guess, parallel scene to that mythological scene where she gets to choose any one of the kings in Greece, and she gets to choose from the one that she wants, and she's wavering in that decision, and it's not as clear cut as when she was first saying, and when she first met him. The relationship that she had and the life that she's rebuilt here. That complexity that you guys were talking about yesterday in her character, and the many ways you can take this, I think really shows up here.
Yes, it really pays, that scene yesterday is really paying off today, isn't it? Aliki, what do you have to say about this?
I'll say that bit first, which is that it reminded me of some of the Virtues and Vices plays that we had, with Menelaus going, your honor, marriage, respectability, our child, and Paris going, yeah, but fun times, yeah, but wealth, yeah, but sex. So that was interesting to me. I want to go back briefly to the earlier part of the scene, because quite a lot of really important plot was said in those discussions in a very efficient and careful way. That again will be very interesting to stage, about who hears what and how and where everything is, because we have Calchas, who is now revealed to also be Chryses, talking to Cressida and saying, this isn't going to work, get out of here. And I think that's why that character has been done that way, so that he can do that and give Cressida a good reason to reject Troilus. And also we had very briefly Achilles going, Polyxena, wow, she's cute, which, as those who know the story know, becomes very important later on. And then we moved into this extraordinarily, I think, quite comic bit of, no, you didn't arm a horse hard guy, he just tripped on a dead guy, huh? And then this, what a wonderful, interesting scene.
It's a fantastic scene, and I'd be really interested to workshop that scene, because I think the possibilities for staging it are fascinating. So, Rob, if you're listening, add that one to your list. Eric.
Yeah, and also I kind of well, like with the modern audience, you kind of, I mean, modern being like, contemporary to our time, not to their time. You kind of hope that Helen is going to go sort of, I don't want either of you, go away, leave me alone, sort of, because there is that sort of hesitation as well, and it's kind of, people's lives are hinging on this decision, so you kind of know that she's like kind of trying not to she's trying to listen to her heart, but also that could mean lots of people dying. So yeah, I don't know, it's just fascinating, and just it's very much sort of, yes, try to win her back, but it's basically manipulation. It's not, they're as good as flirting as the guys were in Humor Out of Breath or something.
It's yeah, you're absolutely right. Can I just say though, I really want to see that play where she does actually say, yeah, you know what, I'm not having it, I don't want either of you, and she walks off stage, and then the actors are immediately like, what, we've got the rest of the Trojan Wars to do, what are we going to do now? I want to see that meta theatrical play. Anyway, Alan, and then did I see your hand, Lynn, earlier actually?
Yeah, I had a little something.
Okay, so Lynn, go first because you've been waiting a while. Then Alan, then Rachael, and then we must move on.
Yeah, as fascinating as this scene is, there's also sort of something really exasperating about it, because wars don't actually generally get fought over this issue. It's not women's fault. It's like the play is trying to make it women's fault, right? Because they're the temptresses, and the actual Trojan War, which may very well have been a historical event about which this myth cycle grew up, was not about the kidnapping of a foreign queen. Probably it was probably about shipping rights in the Dardanelles, but the myth makes it about Helen, and then Heywood kind of runs with it and says, yes, Helen could solve the problem if she chose to, but.
Well, yeah. Although to be fair, you weren't here yesterday, Lynn, so you're not aware of this. But to be fair, the very beginning of this play kicked off with Priam just chomping at the bit to go to war with the Greeks again. It did feel like all of this was a bit of a pretext that being cooked up. So there was that, but I do take your point, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, there was an interesting one or two lines right at the beginning of the sequence at which the princes agreeing amongst them, oh, well, we're all jolly good chaps, we went to the right schools, we can agree nicely, it's just these common people who cause the trouble, which some things never bloody change.
Well, and also it's patently not true.
Well, right.
as the scene reveals later on.
The bullshit's remained the same.
Yeah. Rachael.
I was also going to say, maybe we also get to see this scene differently, because even if these guys aren't monarchs of a modern country, they are monarchs of or in line to be monarchs of their respective countries. So that, need for temperance and, maybe there's some governmental conversation going on and that sort of thing. But also the words that Paris and Menelaus use to seduce her are very different. And I think Aliki said that yesterday that maybe Helen was just looking for any way out of this relationship, because it's not and the way that Menelaus is talking in this scene makes it seem that way, because he's talking about all these other people first. Like, what about your responsibility to your mother and to your daughter? Like, he's calling on her as a daughter, and trying to compartmentalize her. And it makes it feel like in this other relationship, she was very much compartmentalized and ignored, where Paris makes her feel like a human being and like something alive and like actually human. And I wonder if there's a conversation here that we can have, that even in the modern day that, women do get compartmentalized into certain areas of things, whether it's wife or mother or daughter, or their relations to other people, and people want them to exist within that framework. And then how freeing that is to have somebody who's not doing those things and is very much about her. Or maybe how even Paris saying that she's got a child in her womb or whatever from having sex with him, that there's some potential there that there could be a repeat, and that's why she goes, of what she has with Menelaus, and that's why she's going back and forth, because she realizes the whole honeymoon phase might come to an end and be a repeat relationship, and she might be stuck in the same place and she doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. Yes, because Paris is just as maybe likely to compartmentalize her as Menelaus has been. I do think the relationship between Menelaus and Helen is really interesting in this play, and there is tons to delve into if you are going to stage this. Unless anyone has anything that they really have to say, I'd like to move on, because we've still got quite a lot of text to get through. Right. Oh, Eric. There's always one, and it's Eric.
No, it's well. Since you said it, I figured.
I did ask.
I guess it also depends on how old you cast the characters. If you want to be not ageist, sort of, but like how long Menelaus and Helen have been together, how long Paris and Helen have together, and like sort of, if you use Rachel's interpretation, which is a very interesting interpretation, then it kind of has that thing of never actually having the opportunity to be satisfied with her life before Paris.
Yeah, that's a very, very insightful point. Right, let's move on into Act 3, Scene 3. There is an alarm. Enter Troilus and Diomed.
King Diomed!
My rival in the love of Cressida.
False Cressida, injurious Diomed, now shall I prove in hostile interchange of warlike blows that thou art all unworthy the love of Cressida.
Why camest thou not on horseback, that Diomed once again dismounting thee might greet this lady with another course, one from the hand of Troilus?
Diomed, by the true love I bear that trothless dame, I'll win thee, and send thy horse and armor unto the tent of Cressida. Guard thy head, this day by me thou shalt be captive led.
Alarm! They fight and are parted by the army. Diomed loseth his helmet.
Another horse for Diomed to fly. He had never greater need than now to run. Though he be fled, yet Troilus, this is thine. My steed he got by sleight, aye, this by force. I'll send her this, to whom he sent my horse.
So we have a short scene, but a lot going on there with the sort of side plot, as it were, of Troilus and Diomed, who are rivals for Cressida. Unless anyone has anything very piquant to say about that scene, we'll run straight on into the next one. Okay, let's go into Act 3, Scene 4. Enter Aeneas and Achilles reading a letter. Patroclus is also around, later hands Achilles a lute. I think that probably wasn't an original stage direction, but hey, it's good to know.
Is this the answer of the note I sent to Royal Priam and Queen Hecuba, touching their daughter, bright Polyxena?
Behold Queen Hecuba's hand, King Priam's seal, with the consent of fair Polyxena, conditioned thus: Achilles shall forbear to damage Troy.
Return this answer back. Tell Priam that Achilles' arm's benumbed and cannot lift a weapon against Troy. Say to Queen Hecuba, we are her son, and not Achilles, nor one Myrmidon shall give her least affront. As for the lady, bid her presume we henceforth are her knight, and but for her, Achilles scorns to fight.
Then thus saith Priam, but restrain thy powers, and as he is a king, his daughter's yours.
Farewell.
And Aeneas exits. There's an alarm. Enter Ajax.
Achilles! Where's Achilles? When unarmed, when all the campaign where our battle joins is made a standing pool of Creekish blood, where horses plunged up to the saddle's skirts and men above the waist wade for their lines, and canst thou keep thy tent?
My lute, Patroclus.
There is a great alarm. Enter Agamemnon.
Let Greeks kill Greeks. Let's bend unnatural arms against our own breasts, ere the conquering Trojans have all the honor of this glorious day. Can our great champion touch a womanish lute and hear the groans of 20,000 souls gasping their last breath?
I can.
Alarum. Enter Menelaus.
Rescue, some rescue! The red field is strewed with Hector's honours and young Troilus spoils.
Yet all this moves not me.
Alarum. Enter Ulysses.
How long hath great Achilles been surnamed coward in Troy, that Hector, Troilus, Paris have all that name so current in their mouths? I ever held him valiant, yet will Achilles fight?
Ulysses, no. Beneath this globe Achilles hath no foe.
Then here unarmed be slain. Think'st thou they'll spare thee more than us?
Or if thou wilt not arm thee, let thy Patroclus lead thy myrmidons and wear thy armor.
Thy armor is sufficient, without thy presence being feared in Troy.
To save our oath and keep our tents from sack, Patroclus, don our arms, lead forth our guard, and wearing them by no prince be outdared.
Achilles honours me. What heart can fear? And great Achilles sword-proof armour wear.
Exit all the princes except for Achilles. Enter Thersites.
Where's this great sword and buckler man of Greece? We shall have him one of sneaks noise and come peeking into the tents of the Greeks with, "Will you have any music, gentlemen?"
Base groom, I'll tear thy flesh like falling snow.
If I had Hector's face, thou durst not do it.
Durst not?
Durst not. He's in the field, thou in thy tent. Hector playing upon the Greekish virginets, Achilles fingering his effeminate lute. And now, because thou durst not meet him in the field, thou hast counterfeited an humor of love. Achilles, thou the champion of Greece, a mere bugbear, a scarecrow, a hobby horse.
Ulysses taught thee this, deformed slave.
Coward, thou durst not do this to Hector.
On thee I'll practice till I meet with him.
Ajax is valiant, and in the throng of the Trojans, Achilles is turned fiddler in the tents of the Grecians.
Alarum. Enter Diomed, wounded, bringing in Patroclus, dying.
Look here, Achilles.
Patroclus.
This wound great Hector gave. Revenge my death before I meet my grave.
Enter Ulysses and Ajax, wounded.
Yet will Achilles fight? See Ajax wounded, 200 of thy warlike myrmidons thou hast lost this day.
Let's beat him to the field.
Huh?
Had I lost to Patroclus, a dear friend as thou hast done, I would have donned these arms in which he died, sprung through the Trojan host in maugre opposition, let the blow or by the same hand died. Come join with me, and we without this picture, statue of Greece, the shadow of Achilles, will once more invade the Trojan host.
Ajax,
Achilles,
we owe thee for this scorn.
I scorn that debt. Thou hast not fought with Hector.
Mine honour and my oath both combat in me, but love sways most.
Alarum. Enter Menelaus and Agamemnon.
Our ships are fired, 500 gallant vessels burnt in the sea, half our fleet destroyed without some present rescue.
Doth no man ask where is this double fire that two ways flies toward heaven? Upon the right, Our royal navy burns. Upon the left, Achilles' tent's on fire.
Our tent?
By Jove, thy tent and all thy myrmidons have not the power to quench it. Yet great Hector hath shed more blood this day than would have served to quench both fleet and tent.
My sword and armour. Lexna, thy love we will lay by, till by this hand that Trojan Hector die.
I knew he must be fired out.
And they all exit, and we're straight on into Act 3, Scene 5. Alarum. Enter Hector, Paris, Troilus, Aeneas with burning staves and fireballs.
Strike, stab, wound, kill, toss firebrands, and make way, Hector of Troy, and a victorious day!
Well fought, brave brothers!
Enter Ajax.
What's he? 'Tis Ajax, down with him!
No man presume to dart a feather at him whilst we have odds. Cousin, if thou seekest combat, see we stand single. Not one Trojan here shall lay a violent hand upon thy life, save we ourselves.
Cousin, thou art honorable. I now must both entreat and conjure thee for my old uncle Priam's sake, his sister Hesione, my mother, and thine aunt, this day leave thine advantage, spare our fleet, and let us quench our tents. Only this day stay thy victorious hand. 'Tis Ajax pleads, who but of Jove hath never begged before, and save of Jove will not entreat again.
Burn! Still more fire!
I'll quench it with his blood that adds one spark unto this kindled flame. My cousin shall not, for Hesione's sake, be aught denied of Hector's. She's our aunt. Thou, then, this day hast saved the Grecian fleet. Let's sound retreat, whose charge made all Greece quake. We spare whole thousands for one Ajax' sake.
A retreat is sounded. Exeunt the Trojans.
Worthiest alive thou hast. Greece was this day at her last cast, had they pursued advantage. But I divine, hereafter from this hour, we never more shall shrink beneath their power.
And they exit, and that is the end of Act 3. We are running out of time. I just want to say props to Aliki there. If you're watching at home and you're confused, Aliki is playing both Paris and Troilus, and a couple of times now she's had to do both together, replying to each other. But with the use of silly voices, this has turned out very well indeed. So thank you for that. Anyone got anything to say about this as the action starts to ramp up? No? Oh,
There's
Aliki.
so much to say, but there isn't enough time. So
There is, yes, true. True. Okay, well then maybe we'll do another scene and maybe save it for the final thoughts. Let's press on then into Act 4, Scene 1. Enter Hector, Troilus, Paris, Aeneas, Hector's armor bearer with others.
My armor and my trusty Galate, the proudest steed that ever rider backed, or with his hoofs beat thunder from the earth. The sun begins to mount the eastern hill, and we not yet in field. Lords, yesterday we slipped a brave advantage, else these ships that float now on the Samothracian road, and with their waving pendants menace Troy, had with their flames reflecting from the sea gilt those high towers, which now they proudly brave.
on then, Achilles is unconquered yet. Great Agamemnon and the Spartan king, Ajax, the big-boned Duke of Salamine, with him that with his lance made Caenis bleed, the bold but ever rash King Diomed, to lead these captive through Scamander plains. That were a task worth Hector. Why not us? Yet most becoming him. Come, then, Aeneas, let each pick one of these brave champions out and single him a captive.
'Twere an enterprise that would deserve a lasting chronicle. Lead on, renowned Hector.
On, nimble slave, dispatch, make haste. I would be first in field, and now I must be called on.
Enter Andromache and young Astianax.
Oh, stay, dear Lord, my royal husband, stay. Cast by thy shield, fellow uncase his arms. Knock off the rivets, lay that baldric by. But this one day rests with Andromache.
What meanest thou, woman?
To save my honored lord from a sad fate. For if this ominous day, this day disastrous, thou appearest in field, I never more shall see thee.
Fond Andromache, give me some reason for it.
A fearful dream. This night methought I saw thee mongst the Greeks, round grit with squadrons of thine enemies, all which their javelins thrilled against thy beast, and stuck them in thy bosom.
So many squadrons and all their darts quivered in Hector's breast. Some glanced upon my armor, did they not?
Did none of all these darts rebound from Hector and hit thee, sister? For, my lass, I know thou hast been oft hit by thine Hector, so...
Oh, do not jest my husband to his death. I walked and slept and walked again. But both my slumbers and my sound sleeps met in this one main truth. If thou this day affront their army or oppose their fleet, after this day we ne'er more shall meet.
Trust not deceptious visions. Dreams are fables, adulterate scenes of antic forgeries played upon idle brains. Come, lords, to horse. To keep me from the field, dreams have no force.
Troilus, Aeneas, Paris, young Astianax, hang on thy father's armor, stay his speed.
Father, sweet father, do not fight to the day.
Help to take off these burrs, they trouble me.
Hold thy father. If thou canst not kneel, yet with thy tears entreat him safe at home.
I'll hang upon you. You shall beat me, father, before I let you go.
How, boy? I'll whip you if you stir a foot. Get you to your mother.
Come to horse!
Enter Priam, Hecuba, Helen, and others.
Hector, I charge thee by thine honour stay. Go not this day to battle.
By all the gods, Andromache, thou dost abate my love to win me from my glory.
From thy death, Troilus, persuade thy brother. Daughter Helen, speak to thy Paris to entreat him too. Paris, sweet husband.
Leave your cunning, Helen. My brother shall to the field.
But by this kiss thou shalt not.
How have I not the heart to say her nay? This kiss hath overcome me.
My dearest love, pity your wife, your son, your father. All these live beneath the safeguard of that arm. Pity in us, whole Troy, already doomed to sink beneath your ruin.
If thou fall, who then shall stand? Troy shall consume with fire that yet remains in thee. We perish all, or which is worse, led captive into Greece. Therefore, dear Hector, cast thy armor off.
Husband.
Son.
Brother.
By Jove, I am resolved.
Oh, all ye gods.
Not all the devil could have to torment me like these women's tongues.
At my entreaty, and for Helen's love, leave us to bear the fortunes of this day. Here's Troilus, and myself will make them swear ere the fight, and there are 2 Hectors here.
Besides Aeneas and Deiphobus, young Margareton and 1,000 more, sworn to set fire on all their tents this day. Then Hector, for this once, resolved to stay.
To horse then, Paris, do not linger time.
To horse! Come, brother Troilus!
Watch, Margareton, if thy youthful prince venture beyond his strength, let him have rescue.
He shall be all our charge.
Hector, let's mount upon the walls of Troy, and then survey the battle.
Well, be it so. But if one Trojan shall for succor cry, I'll leave the walls and to his rescue fly.
And they all exit. And once again, if you're following along at home, there was some quite extreme doubling in that scene. Not only was Aliki talking to herself as Troilus and Paris, but also Francis was doing a sterling job there, playing both Helen and Priam. And if you're at all confused, it was Helen kissing Paris, not Priam. Anyway, we're going to run straight on into the last scene we're doing today because it's very, very short. Act 4, Scene 2, enter Troilus and Diomed after an alarum.
King Diomed!
Cressida's first love.
Yes, Diomed, and her last. I'll live to love her when thy life is past.
Enter Menelaus, both upon Troilus.
Hold, Trojan, for no Greek must be disarmed.
Enter Paris.
Unmanly odds, King Menelaus, turn thy face this way. 'Tis Trojan Paris calls.
Of all that breath, I love that Paris tongue when it shall call to arms. Now one shall down.
Alarum. Menelaus falls.
Thou keep'st thy word, for thou art down indeed. Yet by the sword of Paris shall not die. I slew thy fame when I first stole thy queen, and therefore Spartan will now spare thy life. Achilles, Diomed, one of three were noble. Ajax, one of three were noble prize. Thou art no spoil for me.
And that's the end of that incredibly short scene. And we come to the end of the session. Well done, everybody. My goodness, that was action-packed. We did 3 scenes in one there, pretty much. So there's a lot to unpack. But if anybody has anything from that very final scene or from the 2 earlier scenes to say, then please leap in now, Helen.
Yes, I mean the wrath of Achilles completely disappears. He's fallen in love, and that's why he doesn't go to war. It's got nothing to do with him having a grudge against Agamemnon. Also, obviously, this is an early modern play. Any suggestion of a relationship between Achilles and Patroclus has disappeared.
Yeah.
But the reason for Achilles staying in his tent was quite amazed me.
I really like the way Heywood's giving people motivations in this play. If anything else to add, Helen?
Nope.
No. Okay, I'll go to Aliki, and then I think I saw someone else's hand. No. Yes. Aliki.
So we were talking about the elements of comedy before, and the element of comedy was so strong in that scene. It was completely impossible to ignore and surely needs to be played. This whole, people rushing in covered in blood and dust saying, everything's going to hell, we're going to die, Achilles, please come help. And he's like, music is nice, isn't it?
Got my loot. Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. It's extraordinary. I find it so fascinating what he's done with this. He's taken this great, big, monumental story, and just turned it to his own devices, which is just fascinating. Anyone else have anything to say, Eric?
Well, also he's kind of, because obviously the value system has shifted, obviously, since classical Greece and since the original via Latin, via lots of other things, presumably his sources. But he still holds on to the whole honor is more important than love for the men. And then for the women, it's kind of like duty. It's unclear, but then duty is matched with honor for the men, and therefore for Hector to go, okay, I'll sit this one out, is a very big thing. And also it's fascinating that they kind of bombard him with the same things that Helen was bombarded with by Menelaus.
Yeah.
And he kind of goes, whatever, I'm going to go fight now. But then he eventually gives in because his brothers and relatives go, yeah, we can totally handle this. This is fine, because that's not going to end up badly.
That's not going to go wrong at all. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else want to comment specifically? Lynn, you look like you're thinking about it.
Yeah, I have too much, but well, yes, there's at least one American scholar, and I'm sure this is kind of a common take, is that a lot of Greek drama, the mythology in classical Greece, often pits these two goods, these two very high values against each other: the oikos versus the polis, your obligation to your family and your clan, as opposed to your obligations to the state. You know, the Oresteia is all about that conflict. You owe more to the state than you do to your family, and often it's women defend the household and family and family life, and the men have like bigger political fish to fry. So that's just sort of an overall pattern that a lot of scholars see in Greek mythology. The other thing I noticed, though, in this take, I think I see is this sort of painful irony of there being repeated opportunities to derail the train of war, to like, we're going to fix it in single combat, but that kind of comes to a draw. We're going to give Helen a chance to do the right thing, but she can't manage to do it. We're going to try to keep Hector home on this particular day, because if he lives, Troy has a chance. But as those of us who know the cycle, he will be drawn back into the conflict and will be killed on this particular day of battle. So that's an interesting dramatic effect. It's like, we almost resolve this, but then it doesn't work out. We have another chance to fix it, and it doesn't work out. So very dramatic.
Yeah, and a really great example of how a really deft writer can continually build up the suspense and the tension, even when the audience, know how it ends. Right, if we have no other comments on those scenes, I'm going to go to final thoughts, and I'll start with Francis.
Really enjoying this play. I mean, when I started reading the bits I missed yesterday, it just goes straight into the action, so it doesn't muck about. There's a lot of subplot, though, to sort of wrap your head around. Lots of couples, there's Troilus and Cressida, there's Paris and Helen, and now there's Achilles and Polyxena. So you've got to keep your wits about you with this play. And I've also been comparing it to Troilus, which we did the other day. And this play doesn't have the same emotional power of Troilus, which is interesting. But I'm enjoying this one more.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think it's doing a different thing, isn't it? But that's something we can talk about maybe tomorrow after we've done the whole play. Alan, final thoughts, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly moving at a cracking pace. I did feel bits of yesterday's were slightly slow, but that was because they were doing the setup. The characters are a bit more rounded now. And I find the mood change is quite interesting to deal with. And the fact that Achilles turned from this sort of very macho, come on if you think you're hard enough character, and then suddenly he falls under the spell of Polyxena and the whole damn thing. And I found trying to reflect that vocally was actually not that easy.
Yeah, no, it's a big journey that he goes on there, to say the least. Gina, any final thoughts from you?
I really like this reading. It got me wondering how this would look like as an audio drama or on stage, because on one hand, just reading the text on paper, it can come across as kind of serious. You understand the stakes involved and the decisions that have to be made. But on the flip side, hearing it being read out loud, this might be due in part to some people having to do character voices to differentiate the certain characters, which were great. But there were points that for me, like we already discussed, how it came across as comedic. And then some of those conversations that on paper might be read as more serious, to me were interpreted almost kind of petty with how they were being read. So I think there's a lot of material and context here, and I could see it going either way. It makes me really want to see someone adapt this first stage, though.
Yeah, yes, me too. And yeah, absolutely, I agree. It could go either way. There is a marvelous pettiness to it, isn't it? I love the way Achilles, until the point where he falls in love, is just so jealous. It's like, oh, I mean, yeah, you don't tend to think of Achilles being that way, but he is in this version. Helen, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I did the first edit on this play over a year ago, and I've completely forgotten it. But at that time, I was raving about how wonderful Heywood's metallic ages were. And of course, this is what I was talking about. And you've all had to slog through gold, silver, which I enjoyed, silver, and bronze, and the bronze, in order to arrive here. And it was, and I mean, I don't know when they were written, at what stage of Heywood's career they were, because he's very good at comedy. But this is the bit that I was loving. This is the play that I was loving. And I really apologize for, well, I don't see why I should, for gold, silver, and brass, which were not so fun. But on the other hand, I don't know if you noticed just how many referrals back there are to the earlier plays.
Well, I wasn't here for most of them, so yeah, that's a good point.
He does refer back.
So there is then some cohesion.
Oh yes. I mean, this is just a continuation, because we've had all these characters' parents. We've had.
No, yeah, all the godly couplings. Alan, very quickly, please,
Yeah,
because I need to move on.
just a quick thought with the other age plays. Was this the first play and the others written as prequels?
I don't think so.
It's a good question. I don't know the answer. If you do, let us know. Lynn, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I think my previous comment counts as that.
Very good. Thank you very much. Rachael, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a little more into it today than I was yesterday. I think, and he did this with the other age plays too, that I think he does do these nice character studies, or you could do these nice character studies on the complex characters he's made. I do think there's a lot of comedy in it, and I think you can have a lot of the comedy in it and still have the seriousness of the action in it. And today it was kind of reminding me of that Kingsman series, those movies where it's pure comedy, and then it's the action, and it's sitting there as the audience, you don't take the action any less seriously just because of the comedy. It's just built in.
Yeah, that is a very nice insight. Thank you. Eric, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I guess most of mine are sort of in response to what's being said. My thing about the emotional power of Troilus versus this one would have been sort of, well, this one is okay. It's obviously doing different things, but also, if you think about Troilus having happened after this one, which is what we're going to get in part 2, but it's just sort of they're doing. The emotional power here is in the suspense of how they're going to work it out, I think, because you like Lynn said, at any moment the war could be derailed, it could be stopped, but it's not, and that's the problem, kind of thing. As for I think Heywood must have been sort of overly obsessed with Troy, because he also, aside from these plays, he also wrote Troia Navant or Troia Britannica. I can't remember what it was called exactly, but it's printed in 1604 or something, and he kind of, it's basically all this, all the plays that we've read, the age plays, but in verse and very different to sort of, I mean, it's the same plot more or less, in the beginning was the word and that kind of thing, and then yeah, but for Greek mythology or Latin mythology, depending on how you want to do it. I don't know, it's fascinating the way sort of he's handling it, because they seem very human and very real, which is why we like them or not like them and sort of get very passionate about them. Whereas with the gods, we're like, whatever, move on.
Yeah, they are so human. As a matter of interest, Eric, is that other Heywood play? Have we done that already? Was that an evening one?
It's not a play. It's actually I think he wrote a book, or it's
okay.
like a poem, an epic. His version of epic poetry.
Okay.
I can probably find.
But we haven't done a session on that yet.
No, we haven't.
That one's hopefully still to come, folks. Aliki, do you have any final thoughts?
Okay, so obviously I saw the comedy a great deal in this. I mean, I know I read Paris like a walking dirty joke, but he was written that way.
He certainly was. Yeah.
So I'm really intrigued by Rachael's reference to a highly kind of choreographed and beautifully compelling action sequence in the middle of this, because what I kept having in mind was musical comedy, which is, highly choreographed musical sequence. There's something about, especially when I was reading all the Trojans, fire, burn, kill, you could totally see that as a choral number. But it would be more interesting to leaven the violence and tragedy with the comedy, as Rachael suggested, than to go full on for comedy. So that's where I'm at. I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah, it's been a very enjoyable session, action-packed, and lots to think about. We still have the final third of the play still to do, so please do tune in for the next session, where we'll read the conclusion of this pretty amazing play, I would say, so far. It only remains for me to say thank you very much to all the readers who have been here today to pick this apart. And we'll see you again next time. Bye.
Bye.
Alarum.